What do I need to know about shipping and logistics for private labeling?
Yeah, so that's a question we get a lot. The question is, what do you need to know when it comes to logistics and shipping when you're importing a product to sell on Amazon? So you're definitely going to hear some terms when you start working with manufacturers that you probably aren't familiar with. I want to go over some of the most common and probably the ones that you need to know the most. The number one most important thing for you to do is that you need to get a really good freight forwarder and customs broker to work with that's going to help you through this entire process. A good freight forwarder is going to make it so you really don't need to know that many of these terms that well, although it is really good to have a good understanding, but they're gonna handle all of the dirty work for you, all of your paperwork, and they're gonna make sure that your product gets from your manufacturer to wherever it needs to go in the right way. So one of the terms that you're gonna hear very often is just gonna be related to the size of your shipment. So when you first start working with a supplier and you're going to ask for a quote, oftentimes they're gonna ask you how many pieces or how many products you're going to want. And then when it comes to shipping on that, it's gonna factor into how big of a shipment you're getting. So one of the first terms you're gonna hear possibly is LTL. What this means is less than container load. And that means that you're simply just not getting a full container. You're getting some kind of smaller amount, whether that's one pallet's worth or maybe half of a normal container worth. And so LTL just means a smaller size shipment. Typically, you're going to pay a higher price per piece on shipping just because you're not utilizing a full container's worth, and you basically get the economy of scale once you start getting a larger amount of shipments. And once you start using full containers, your price per unit on shipping is typically going to go down as you start getting into larger shipments. However, a lot of people just need to start with that smaller first initial order. So you might tell your supplier that you're going to have an LTL shipment, and your freight forwarder might use that terminology with you. The next most common shipment sizes that you're going to come across would be a 20-foot container, a 40-foot container, and then a 40-foot high cubed. So the container size is basically the standard length of a container, 20 feet or 40 feet. But then when it comes to the 40-foot container or the 40-foot HQ, that simply means high cubed, and it's actually just a taller container. So it adds a couple extra feet to the container, which really increases the overall volume that's inside the container. And you might be surprised just how many more products you can get into a 40-foot HQ over a 40-foot. Typically at this point, we are only doing 40-foot HQs, but that's not how we started. The reason we do it now is because it, again, reduces the overall price per piece on a shipping basis for our units. But when we started, we were often doing LTL or 20-foot containers, even though the overall price isn't that different from a 20-foot to a 40-foot container. So some more terms that you'll hear around shipping are FOB or EXW. So FOB means free on board, and what this means is that your supplier is going to actually get your product to the nearest port. So they are going to include the cost of typically trucking your product from their factory to the port where your product is ultimately going to ship out of. And again, this is assuming that it's going to be a boat shipment. And so FOB price is always going to be higher than an EXW or X-Works. X-Works means that they're quoting you just on the product itself, no shipping costs at all. So they're not including the shipping from the factory to the port. You are going to be responsible for that shipping, the entire shipping. And actually, as soon as the product leaves the factory, it's going to be your responsibility. With the FOB shipping, they are going to be responsible for the product all the way to the time it gets to the port and gets onto the boat where you take over the control of the product, usually with your freight forwarder and customs insurance and all of that included. The next term that you might come across is door-to-door delivery. And so you might want to be really clear with your supplier if you're looking for a door-to-door delivery, especially if you're using your supplier as also being your freight forwarder. You want to make sure that when you're asking for the shipping quotes that you're getting all costs of the quote from door to door, not just to a port or to the port stateside. So a lot of times you'll get a quote that only includes the cost to getting your product to the port in the US, but typically then you're going to need to also truck your product from the port in the US to your final destination. So you might want a final door-to-door delivery cost if you're trying to calculate all of your costs into the shipping at once. Lastly, some terms you may come across additionally when it comes to shipping and logistics are customs, duties, tariffs. These are all essentially additional charges that are going to be potentially on your product based on what category your product is, the raw materials it's made out of, and you really are going to want to rely on a good customs broker to help you through this process. You don't want to get surprised by tariffs or duties that you weren't expecting because you didn't research beforehand and see if your product fell under some kind of duty or tariff because of the material makeup. So definitely reach out to a good freight forwarder and customs broker that can help you along this way. I think that one of the biggest fears for a lot of people, and one of the biggest things stopping people from importing products from China or India or wherever, is because they're too afraid of the import process. They think that it's gonna be too difficult, they don't know how to do the paperwork, and they don't know all these terms. But really, that's a small fear, and you should really put that to rest, because that's probably been one of the least concerning parts of the entire process for us. It's really, really easy if you get the right team to do it all for you, and the right freight forwarder, the right customs broker will take care of everything. So those are some of the major questions that you're first going to see. There's definitely more terms and questions related to shipping, so I want to hear any other terms or things that you've come across, questions you have about shipping or logistics. Write down in the comments. We'll be hanging out there, and I'd love to answer any other shipping or logistic questions that you have. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe if you want to hear more videos about selling on Amazon. And don't forget to check out the Amazing Freedom channel, where everything we talk about is building freedom through the power of the Amazon marketplace.